Hello everyone, my name is Sarafi and I'm happy to meet you all, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about Shadowverse Worlds Beyond. I played the original Shadowverse when it came out for a bit, but I found it was very similar to Hearthstone, and then Legends of Runeterra came out and I got addicted to that, so I stopped playing Shadowverse altogether. I got re-released with a new set of cards and some new mechanics, so let's take a look and see what it's all about. So, to start with, Shadowverse is a turn based card game where you have mana that automatically gets generated at the beginning of every turn. They call it play points. The player who goes second has a couple of unique features. They have the ability to get one extra mana on any turn up to the sixth turn, and then after the sixth turn, they also get the ability to do it again one more time. Additionally, there is a mechanic called evolution and super evolution, and the player who goes second can access evolution one turn earlier than the player who goes first. You only have 20 health, and any unit that you summon cannot attack the turn that it is summoned unless it has rush or storm. Rush is a keyword that allows you to attack immediately, but only against other followers, and if evolution gives you rush if you don't already have it. And then storm allows you to attack immediately either an enemy unit or the enemy hero. And storm is somewhat prevalent. There's even a 1 mana card that has storm only for swordcraft to allow them to be more aggressive than some of the other decks. There's a combination of neutral cards, which can be played in any deck, and class cards, which can only be played in a certain class. Each class has keywords and archetypes that are unique to it. It's very similar to like the color scheme in Magic the Gathering. So let's talk about this. This is definitely not a balanced game by any stretch of the imagination, but this is the first set, so I wouldn't expect it to be very balanced. And there is an expansion coming out next week, so I'm eager to try and start playing. I started playing this game 2 days ago, and I already have if you take a look at my collection, I haven't spent any money on the game, but I have been completing some of the basic quests and saving for the 10 packs. You get a guaranteed legendary every 10 packs that you buy, which is very generous. And you can see I have 110 of 142 cards collected. I also have 7,000 vials. Vials are used to craft any card that you want. You get some vials for free whenever you buy a pack, and then you can also disenchant cards to get extra vials. And there's an option to automatically disenchant any cards that you have more than 3 copies of, because you can't play more than 3 copies of any card. So for example, if I wanted to craft Orcus Newfound Heart, this is a legend rank card, so it costs 3,500 vials. So I could, you can't see my, hold on. So it costs 3,500 vials. So I could make 2 legendary cards right now. Anything that's not legendary, let's take a look. This is, can I tell? I think this is bronze. 750. I think everything that's not legendary is 750 regardless of its rank. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Homecraft time is gold, or homework time is gold, which is the lowest, which is the highest rank beyond, the highest rarity beyond legend. And it only costs 750. Okay, so it's pretty fair, pretty standard. So that's the collection, and then next week they're going to add, I think, like 120 more cards. Every day you get a free pack. That's not where the packs are. Hold on, let me see. Go to shop. Every day you get a free pack, and I guess maybe I already got it for today. I was playing at like 1 in the morning, so maybe I already got it. There's a battle pass which has both a free track and a premium track. So you just get progress in the battle pass for playing ranked, and you can just take all these free stuff. You get free vials, free gold, so you can buy packs. Looks like there's a card back, and then whatever this thing is. I think this is like a wild card. I think you can use this to craft any card that you want. And there was another one, I think, on the... Yeah, okay, there's one at 25 and one at 50. Two guaranteed cards in a single season is pretty generous, to be honest. With how their crafting system is already working, I feel like that's fair. Especially since there's only so many cards to begin with anyway. Okay, so with that in mind, that is like the basics of Shadowverse. Now let's talk about the decks. So... there are currently 7 classes. Forestcraft, which is you play a bunch of 1/1s and you try and combo with them in order to, like, the combo mechanic is you can activate this effect if you play this card as this spot in the turn or later. So like there's a card that's a combo 3. You have to play 2 other cards before you play that card in order to activate its combo effect. So the deck generates a lot of 1-mana 1/1s with Rush, and then it sets up for a combo to try and kill people, which works pretty well. Forestcraft is like, it's like tier 2-ish right now. You have Swordcraft, which is a mixture of, one of their mechanics is the Officer mechanic, which is a couple of their units can buff Officer units that are summoned. Typically, Officer units are tokens, like 2/2s, and they have the ability to summon multiple units and buff their board. It's basically like white in Magic Gathering. It's like a token soldier class that focuses around summoning as many units as possible and then trying to buff them. Right now it feels a little bit slow. You can play like a mid-range Swordcraft deck that just doesn't use any of the low-cost units and tries to generate like big threats on turns 6 and 7. It's possible that is a decent deck, but it feels like there's not a way really for Swordcraft to put enough pressure on the board right now. Even though you only have 20 health, you would think that an aggro deck, like a 1-mana 1/1 that has charge, that you could buff to a 3/3 later, would be really powerful. But it doesn't. It feels like the game has too many ways to remove weak enemies right now for that to be a viable strategy. Aggro just kind of feels weak at the moment. Runecraft, there are 2 ways to play Runecraft. You have Earth Sigils and you have Spell Boost. Earth Sigils are cards that generate an artifact on your board that cannot be attacked and cannot attack, called an Earth Sigil. Every turn you can spend 1 mana to engage the Earth Sigil. And what engaging does is it gives it an extra stack. So like say you have a card that like gives you 2 Earth Sigils. Okay. Now you have an Earth Sigil count of 2, and if you engage it by spending an additional mana, which you don't have to spend a card on, you can just click on it and you spend an additional mana. Now it goes up to 3. And then you spend those Earth Runes on other cards, which can give you tokens. It can give you like a buff to one of your units. It can do a few other things. That's kind of like the beginner version of Runecraft. The more expensive version of Runecraft is Spell Boost. And what Spell Boost is a card that has Spell Boost gains a passive benefit while it is in your hand every time you play a spell. But in addition to that, a lot of the followers in Runecraft have the ability to Spell Boost the hand as part of their interaction. In particular, one of Runecraft's legendary units has the ability to Spell Boost your hand 3 times while also summoning a 5/5 for you, and if you evolve her, then she also deals 3 damage to a unit on the board that you get to choose. It's a very powerful card that really makes it difficult. Like this, in particular, Runecraft's ability to play this one card on turn 6 or 5 if they go second, that allows them to set up their hand regardless of what they've drawn previously, clear the board very efficiently, and also protect themselves with a 5/5 ward until the end of the next turn. Makes it very difficult for aggro to go anywhere close to Runecraft. It basically shuts aggro completely down on this one turn. And there's not really a way for aggro to stop them from playing this card. There's no disruption in their hand. So that's one of the reasons why aggro Swordcraft and aggro Dragoncraft aren't very good right now, because Runecraft is so dominant. Speaking of Dragoncraft, we have Dragoncraft. Dragoncraft is it's dragons. And dragons have a couple of interesting mechanics. The first mechanic that they have is called Overflow, which is an ability that only unlocks if you have at least 7 maximum mana. They have 2 cards that let them ramp and increase their maximum mana. And I'm certain that in the new set they will probably also get another card that does this. That's typical. In Magic Gathering in green and in other decks like Druid, typically every set you get one new ramp card, and then depending on how long the format actually is, you can make your ramp more and more consistent to the point where it's more and more likely for you to hit 10 mana on turn 7, turn 6, and at that point you actually do become a much bigger threat than you may have been at the start. So I feel like Dragoncraft is like untapped potential at the moment. They are not a very good deck at the moment, but they can definitely take off if they are given more tools to increase their mana. The other mechanic that Dragoncraft has is Intimidate, which is really interesting. The dragons have Intimidate, and Intimidate is I can't be attacked. So one of the primary ways in Shadowverse for you to remove enemy units is to summon your own unit and then evolve it to give it rush, or super evolve it to give it rush. So you can try and crash into one of your opponent's monsters and clear the board. This is not an option for Dragoncraft units. If you summon one of your Intimidate units and you make it really powerful, then potentially your opponent won't necessarily be able to remove it, and then you are guaranteed to be able to go face with it. It's an interesting idea. One of the main problems is that at the moment, there are too many ways for Runecraft to clear the board without attacking. They have that legendary that I mentioned earlier, and then they also have another unit. It's a 6 mana card that deals X damage to every unit when it's summoned, where X is the number of times that you've spell boosted it. And since you can play both those cards at 3, that means that Runecraft has 6 different ways to take down a dangerous Intimidate unit. So right now, Dragoncraft hasn't taken off too much. Next up, we have Abysscraft. Abysscraft has 3 very unique mechanics, which are pretty interesting. This is basically like your black class, your necromancy class. And they have the necromancy ability, which is every time one of their units dies, they get a corpse, and then they can spend those corpses to empower their abilities. It's very similar to Death Knight in Hearthstone. Additionally, you have the Reanimate ability, which is when you activate Reanimate, you can resummon a unit with the maximum mana cost that Reanimate has. So, for example, the boss monster of Abysscraft is Cerberus, who summons 2 1-cost units that both have Rush. And then when you evolve her, she can revive both of them. So you basically summon her, she summons both of her little tokens, you crash them in to deal some damage, and they both die. Then you evolve her, and then you get them both back. It's an interesting idea. The last mechanic that Abysscraft has is called Drain, which is some of their units have the ability to restore health when they deal damage, which is, typical. It's very common for that sort of thing, but in exchange for Abysscraft having that power, some of their cards deal damage to your own hero. And at the moment, it seems like the difference between self-damage and healing is a little bit high in favor of the self-damage, which again, this is common when a game first comes out. There are decks that are like they have a mechanic that's not fully explored with the intention of giving them additional cards at a drip pace, and those decks get better over time, whereas the decks that don't need so many support cards kind of stay stagnant. And then after like the third or fourth set, now you're seeing the decks that kind of were bad at the beginning become more powerful because their original archetype becomes more and more consistent with more and more cards being added. So Abysscraft is probably the second worst deck in the game right now, and it probably will get better once we have more ways to trigger Necromancy or more ways to drain. Havencraft definitely feels like the absolute worst deck right now. I've been playing in the arena, I've been playing in ranked, and I have not seen a single Havencraft player, which is sad because Havencraft is where all the angels are. But it's like a control deck, and it has the ability to banish followers so that you can get rid of them without triggering their last words. It also has the ability to heal your leader. But that's not that uncommon. Every other deck seems to have some ways to heal, except Swordcraft. So, and healing is important, but with such low health, your burst, like, it's so easy to burst you down anyway that you don't really have enough time to heal, to be honest. It doesn't feel like healing is good for specifically keeping aggro. The healing in the game right now is specifically good enough to keep aggro down. That's about it. It doesn't stop you from getting comboed or killed, which I'm sure is their intention. But that makes Havencraft like missing something. It doesn't feel like it's able to stop the opponent's deck really all that well. And I think that the new set is going to try and address that, because some of the cards that they've leaked for Havencraft have been pretty good. And then lastly, the best deck in the game right now is called Portalcraft. It has two different mechanics. The first one is Puppets. You get the ability to add it to your hand and summon these either 0 mana 1/1s with Rush or 1 mana 3/3s with Rush, both of which die during the end of your opponent's turn. And then the other option is Artifacts, which you can fuse. They're cards that you can't play, but you fuse them together in your hand, and then you can build a bigger unit. And so you have a bunch of cards that generate these useless one-cost cards that you then fuse in your hand. And if you do it in the right combination, you can end up with a 10-mana 10/10 that can immediately attack your opponent and also heal you, which is a really powerful unit. And you have the ability to, like, while they're in your hand, you can summon copies of them with other cards so that you don't have to keep them. You don't have to play them. You can keep, like, fusing them while you're waiting to finally unleash them. Now, Portalcraft being the best deck in the game and Runecraft being the second best deck in the game is an indication of a couple of things. To start with, like, both these decks are like combo decks that wait to try and unleash a big powerful unit late in the game. Runecraft, I forgot to mention, their boss monster is it has the ability to summon 3 units, 2 of which have Rush and the other one has a Ward. But they all, like, but if you spend 10 mana on it, it combines all 3 of them together into a 10/10 with Ward and Aura. Aura being that it can't be targeted by a spell. And then you can super evolve it to give it Storm so that it can immediately attack your opponent. So this deck focuses around surviving until 10 mana and then crushing your opponent in a single blow. Same with this deck. And in theory, that should be more difficult than it is. So this is an indication that the Shadowverse meta is a little bit skewed at the moment in favor of a couple things. Number one, card draw is too cheap. This is one of the things. It should not be this efficient for players to simply skip their turns and draw cards. You should feel more pressure for doing that. But Swordcraft does not have the ability to put enough damage on the board to make that sort of thing a reality. And it's simply too easy to come back from taking 5 damage by turn 3. Card draw is too cheap, in particular for Runecraft. And for Portalcraft, it's simply too easy to fuse units. Now, fusion does appear to be coming back and for other classes in the next set, so I don't think that they're going to make any changes to this. But realistically, if they wanted to try and rein in some of the outliers in their meta, they would add a mana cost to fusion. So there's a mana cost for engaging amulets, like the Earth Sigil of 1. You spend 1 mana on that. I feel like Portalcraft would be balanced, not nearly as strong as it is right now if they had to spend 1 mana to fuse their cards, especially since they have to fuse multiple cards. If they had to spend more mana to fuse their cards, they wouldn't be able to afford card draw. They would use the extra mana that they use to draw cards to instead fuse their cards, and rather they would be much more dependent on actually drawing cards that continue to give them artifacts. In particular, because they can afford to play card draw, Portalcraft right now, the best version of it is not puppets or artifacts. It's a hybrid of both, because it's so easy to play artifacts, it doesn't cost you anything. So they just run the puppets to kind of keep the board steady while they're building up to try and get their big boss monster. That's weird. If you have 2 archetypes in a class, they should not work together. That creates a situation where the class is just basically dominant, like what we're seeing right now. So, yeah. And then for Runecraft, hold on, let me actually show you some examples of some of these cards. This is what the cards actually look like. You can hover over the card to see what it is. Here's the mana cost, here's what class it is, and here's what it does. So this says Foresight, draw card. And there's also Radiant Rainbow, which is 2 mana. Select a card in your hand with on spell boost it, and draw a card. So this card is 2 mana to draw a card, and then it triggers spell boost twice for 1 card in your hand. So between these two, you're basically drawing a card for 1. And then you have Seraphic Tidings, which any class can play. That's 3 mana, draw 2. And then this is like a this is a temporary card for me because I don't have homework. Well, let's see. Homework Time is the same thing. It's 3 mana to draw 2. But then it says X starts at 0. On spell boost, increase by X by 1. Then if X is at least 5, transform this card into Looking Smart. Looking Smart is 1 mana, draw 2 cards, deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower. So you can either play this card immediately for 3 mana to draw 2, or if you spell boost by playing units, you don't even have to play spells, you can play units that spell boost, then you spend 1 mana to draw 2 cards and deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower, which is absolutely insane in terms of control value. And this is the legendary that I was talking about. Is there a way to like zoom in on the art? She's a 5 mana 4/4, which is pretty decent stats, to be honest. Like, I feel like her stats should be lower. If she summons a 5/5, I feel like her stats should be lower. Summoning is a 5/5 rush ward at the end of the opponent's turn, destroy a card. So it immediately attacks, even if you don't evolve it. It protects you from getting hit back, and then it dies at the end of your opponent's turn. So it clears the board, and it keeps you from taking damage for 1 turn, which is insane. It also protects Anne Grea. So if you, on your turn, you have like a 5/2 that has ward, and it's going to die at the end of the turn. So if you try and kill it right now, you are using up a unit that would otherwise live if you let it go. But if you don't do it, since it has ward, it protects your Anne from being targeted. If you don't kill the Anne summoning, then you have to try and, like, you'll have to let the Anne and Grea live. Now, the Anne and Grea doesn't threaten anything, like, it doesn't have any other effects after it's summoned, but it's still a 6/6 after it's been evolved. So you kind of have to get rid of it. So this card just feels like it just does too much at the moment. So I mentioned how, like, I feel like they might want to adjust Runecraft a little bit, or not Runecraft, Portalcraft a little bit. With Runecraft, I don't think they're going to change the cost of their card draw. I think the card draw is way too cheap, and I think that's the problem. But I don't think they're going to adjust that. So instead, they really need to adjust Anangria. This card should spell boost your hand once. That's it. Like the rest of the effects are unnecessary. This is very important to actually resolve the card. It's very important to have her clear the board and burn, because of the, she's a 5-drop. She's supposed to try and make sure that you stabilize after a couple turns of doing nothing. But the fact that she spell boosts your hand 3 times is insane. That's way too much. So yeah, this card needs to be nerfed. All right, there you go. That's my thoughts on the initial Shadowverse. I'm also going to release a video talking about the expansion. My name is Sarafi, and I was thrilled to have all of you with me.